Wesley Dalton hadn't meant to wander into the conference hall. He was just looking for a quiet place to feed his 4-year-old daughter her banana and crackers. "Kara, slow down, sweetheart," he said, jogging after the curly-haired tornado in pink overalls who had just darted through the open double doors of the hotel's grand ballroom. He stepped inside, breath catching slightly at the size of the room. The lights had been dimmed, and the long tables that once held catered platters now sat empty. The conference must have ended hours ago, but what stopped Wesley in his tracks wasn't the quiet or the size of the room. It was the woman sitting alone in the front row, her back to him, her shoulders shaking. Kara noticed it too. She tugged on Wesley's hand and whispered, "Daddy, is that lady sad?" Wesley crouched beside her. "I think so, baby." He hesitated. Normally, he'd turn and leave, give someone their space, but something about the way her hands were clenched in her lap, like she was trying not to fall apart, made him stay. "Hey," he called gently, stepping a little closer. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, mascara slightly smudged, but even in the mess of it all, she was stunning. Not in the runway model way, but in the kind of way that made him forget what he was doing for a second. She blinked at him, confused, like she hadn't realized anyone else was there. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't know anyone was." "You don't have to apologize," Wesley said quickly. "I can leave if you need space. Just, my kid ran in here." The woman's eyes dropped to Kara, who was munching on a cracker and staring at her like she was a cartoon character. "I didn't mean to cry in here," she said with a tired smile. "I just needed a minute." Wesley stepped closer, lowering Kara to her feet. "You okay?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "No, but I will be. I just made a huge mistake." "Those are the best kind," he said before thinking. "I mean, sometimes mistakes lead to better things, or at least lessons." That made her laugh, though it was soft and sad. "Do you always give philosophical advice in abandoned conference halls?" "Only on Wednesdays," he said. "I'm Wesley, and this is Kara, my boss." Kara beamed. "Hi, I'm 4. The woman chuckled, reaching out to shake Kara's hand. "Hi, I'm Avery. It's nice to meet you, Kara." Avery, he liked the name. It suited her. "You want a snack?" Kara offered, holding out a soggy cracker. Avery smiled warmly. "Thank you, sweetie, but I'm okay." Wesley hesitated. "Look, I don't know what happened, but if you need someone to talk to, I've been told I have great ears." Avery glanced at him, her eyes softening. "You really want to hear about a woman who just tanked her entire future?" "Only if you want to tell it." She sighed, staring at the empty stage ahead. "I just gave a speech to a room full of investors. My company, the one I built from the ground up, is about to go public. It should be the best day of my life." He waited, sensing there was more. "I was supposed to celebrate with my fiancé tonight," she said, voice dropping. "Turns out he only proposed to me to get a seat at the table. He was leaking confidential info to a competitor." Wesley's jaw tightened. "You're kidding." "I wish I was." Her voice cracked again. "Called it off 10 minutes before I walked into this room." He sat down on the floor beside her. "I'm sorry." She looked at him, surprised. "You're not going to ask me why I didn't see it coming, or what kind of person lets that happen?" "Nope," Wesley said simply, "because you didn't deserve it." Avery stared at him for a long moment. "What do you do?" He glanced down at his worn jeans and the hole in his sneaker. "Right now, fix cars and coach Kara's soccer team on weekends." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "You're a single dad." "Yeah, my wife passed 3 years ago." Avery's face softened. "I'm sorry." Wesley shrugged, but his voice was quiet. "Thanks." They sat in silence for a moment, Kara curling up beside him, using his leg as a pillow. I should probably go, Avery said eventually, standing up slowly. Wesley stood too. You sure you're okay? She hesitated. No, but this helped, you helped. He smiled, glad to be of service. Avery looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in her eyes. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Wesley blinked. With me. No, with your daughter, she said deadpan, then she laughed. Yes, with you. He rubbed the back of his neck. Sure, I mean, yeah, like that. Avery reached into her purse, then paused. Wait till you even know who I am. He grinned. You said Avery, right? She let out a breath. Avery Rowan, CEO of Rowan Tech. He gave her a blank look. Avery tilted her head. You really don't know. I fix cars, Avery. I don't exactly read Forbes. She laughed again, a real one this time. Good, that's good. And for the first time since she'd walked into that room, Avery felt like maybe, just maybe, she hadn't lost everything. Wesley stared at his reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink, hastily dragging a comb through his hair while Kara sat on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs and munching on dry cereal from a plastic container. Are you nervous? She asked between bites. He paused, glancing at his daughter's wide eyes. A little. Why? Because haven't been on a date in a long time. She tilted her head. Is this a date or coffee? He turned back to the mirror. I'm not actually sure. Kara gave a dramatic sigh, clearly unimpressed by his lack of clarity on the situation. Do you like her? Wesley grabbed a clean t-shirt from the back of a chair and pulled it on. She's interesting. Interesting like a robot or interesting like sparkles? He blinked, definitely not like a robot. A knock sounded at the door before he could elaborate, and Kara slid off the counter, cereal still in hand. Wesley opened the door to find his neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, waiting with her tote bag and a gentle expression. You look like you're going to a job interview, she said, stepping inside. Relax, I'll keep her alive. Thanks, Mrs. A. He kissed Kara's forehead. Be good. I'm always good, she said, then whispered loudly to Mrs. Alvarez, he's meeting a lady. Wesley closed the door on their laughter and took a deep breath before heading down the stairs. The bus stop was 2 blocks away, and he walked quickly, conscious of the time. Avery had suggested a cafe in the arts district, not the kind of place he normally went, but he wasn't about to admit that. By the time he arrived, the sun had slid behind the skyline and the cafe's outdoor lamps flickered to life. He spotted her instantly, sitting on the patio beneath a climbing wall of ivy, a cup already in her hand, and a book open on the table. She looked up as he approached, her expression unreadable. You hate being late, don't you? He asked, sliding into the seat across from her. I hate lukewarm espresso, she replied, closing the book. He nodded toward it. You actually reading that, or just trying to look mysterious? She raised an eyebrow. I was hoping you'd assume I'm cultured and poetic. Sorry to disappoint, he said, waving down a waiter. Fix engines, not poems. I figured, she gestured toward his hands. You've got grease under your nails. He glanced down and laughed under his breath. Guess your boardroom friends wouldn't be impressed. They'd be confused, she said. They all wear watches that cost more than my first car, but don't know how to screw in a light bulb. He leaned back. So tell me something they don't know about you. She stirred her drink. I used to draw comic books when I was a kid, superheroes with ridiculous powers. One could turn anything into a sandwich. That's either genius or concerning, he said. What happened to those comics? She hesitated. Stopped after my parents died. Survival became the priority. Wesley's expression shifted. That's a rough hand. She nodded once. It taught me how to fight for what I want, but sometimes I think forgot how to want anything that isn't a goal. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the air between them was heavy with something unspoken. "You ever wish you could start over?" she asked quietly. "Only every Thursday afternoon," he said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I envy Kara." His brow furrowed. "Why?" "She still believes people are good. That's rare." "She's 4, give her time." Avery shook her head. "No, don't let her lose that. Protect it like it's gold." The waiter returned with Wesley's drink, and the moment passed. He sipped his coffee, watching her. "So what happens now? With the company, I mean." "I take back control," she said. "I've called an emergency board meeting for Monday. He's going to try to spin it, make me look unstable. But I've prepared." He frowned. "That doesn't sound like something you should have to do alone." "I don't have much choice," she said, eyes steady. "I built it for 10 years. I'm not letting him tear it down in 10 minutes. Wesley was silent for a beat. "You know, if you ever want to disappear for a few hours, I know a junkyard where no one gives a damn about stock prices." She laughed then, a real one this time, and something in her posture eased. "Is that your idea of a romantic getaway?" "Depends. You ever been kissed on the hood of a 72 Chevelle?" She arched a brow. "Have you?" "Once," he said. "She said she liked the car more than me." Avery shook her head, amused. "You're impossible." "Only on Fridays." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the city humming around them. She eventually leaned forward, her gaze thoughtful. "You're not like anyone I've met before." "I'll take that as a compliment," he said, finishing his drink. "It is," she said softly. "Most people want something from me. You don't." "I want you to breathe," he said. "Maybe laugh sometimes, that's about it." She looked down at her hands, then back at him. "You might be the most dangerous man I've ever met." He raised a brow. "Me, why?" "Because you make me forget how many walls I've built." Wesley didn't answer right away. He reached across the table and gently brushed her fingers with his. She didn't pull away. "I'm not here to break anything," he said. "But if you ever want to open a door, I'll be standing on the other side." Avery held his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I already started." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing a marble-floored lobby that gleamed under the recessed lighting. Wesley stepped out, tugging slightly at the too-stiff collar of the button-down shirt Avery had insisted he wear. He felt like an imposter in this place, like someone would stop him any moment and demand to know what a grease-slicked mechanic was doing in a building where the chandeliers probably cost more than his annual rent. "Wesley." He turned at the sound of her voice and forgot, for a moment, that he was out of place. Avery stood just beyond the glass wall of the private boardroom, dressed in a sleek navy suit that didn't just fit her, it commanded the space around her. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes sharper than he'd ever seen them. But when she looked at him, something in her expression softened. "You made it." "Wasn't sure I'd get past the guy downstairs," he said. "He looked like he eats sarcasm for breakfast." She walked over, her heels silent on the polished floor. "Told the front desk you were coming. You're part of the plan." "Still not sure why I'm here," he said, lowering his voice. "You've got lawyers, advisors." "I needed someone who sees the truth when it's not dressed in a 3-piece suit." He studied her, then nodded. "Okay, what do you need?" She handed him a manila folder. "When I told the board about what happened with Matthew, a few of them hesitated. They've worked with him for years, he's charming when he wants to be. Couldn't just accuse him without evidence." Wesley opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, financial statements, and a timeline she'd clearly spent sleepless nights assembling. The final page was a signed document, a non-disclosure agreement with a clause that had been quietly altered. "You think this will be enough?" he asked. I know it is. She looked past him, through the glass, where the board members were beginning to settle into their chairs. But they won't hear it from me alone. They've tuned me out. I need someone they'll listen to, someone with nothing to gain. He glanced through the glass as well. You want me to talk? I want you to tell them what you told me, about trust, about value, about what it means to actually build something. His brow furrowed. I'm not a speech guy. I'm not asking for a speech, she said, just honesty. He looked at the papers again, then at her. You're sure? She nodded once, completely. She returned to the boardroom first, her shoulders squared. Wesley followed a beat later, ignoring the way every head turned. Most of them were older, dressed in tailored suits, their expressions a mix of curiosity and condescension. This is Wesley Dalton, Avery said, without flinching. He's here because he understands what it means to build something with your own hands, something no one can take from you, and because he reminded me that integrity doesn't live in a corner office. Wesley cleared his throat. I won't take much of your time, he said, voice steady but low. I'm not part of your world. Fix things for a living old things, rusted things, things most people would rather replace. But when something matters to you, you don't throw it away. You fight for it. He held up the folder. This woman built something from nothing. She gave it 10 years, and the man who was supposed to stand beside her decided to sell it out for a shortcut. I don't know business, but I know betrayal. The room was quiet. She trusted him, Wesley continued. Like you all trusted him, but now you have a choice. You can protect your pride, or you can protect what she built. He stepped back, not waiting for a reaction. Avery let the silence hang before speaking. We'll vote now. It didn't take long. One by one, hands raised. Some reluctantly, some with conviction. But the result was clear. Matthew's shares would be frozen pending investigation. Avery's control was reinstated. As the room cleared, Wesley stood near the back, unsure if he should wait or walk out. Avery approached him, her expression unreadable. You did it, he said quietly. We did it, she looked down at her hands. I thought I'd feel relief or triumph, but I just feel empty. He nodded. That's what winning alone feels like. She looked up. I wasn't alone. A pause stretched between them. I want to show you something, she said. They left the tower, her car gliding through the city until they reached a long, quiet stretch of riverfront. She parked near a small, fenced-in lot with a for sale sign. This was where my parents had their first business, she said. A print shop. We lost it when I was 13. I've been trying to buy it back ever since, but it was wrapped in city red tape. He looked at the cracked pavement, the faded brick walls. Why now? I made a phone call this morning. The seller agreed to a deal. She turned to him. I don't want to build things for other people anymore. I want to build something real, something that can't be taken away with a signature. You're thinking of starting over. She nodded, but not alone. Wesley studied her. You mean that? I do. She took his hand, and it felt like a turning point. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet and certain. I don't know what this is yet, she said, but I want to find out. He brushed his thumb over her knuckles. So do I. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt like they were standing at the edge of something broken. They were standing at the beginning of something new. The rooftop buzzed softly with ambient jazz, string lights suspended above casting a golden glow over the intimate dinner set for two. A private chef moved with quiet precision in the corner, plating the final course beside a silver ice bucket. Avery stood near the edge, arms resting on the stone ledge, watching the skyline flicker as the last hint of daylight faded. Wesley stepped up behind her, adjusting the sleeves of the black blazer she'd given him earlier. He hadn't owned anything this nice. She hadn't asked him to wear it, but when she draped it over the chair in his apartment that morning, he'd understood what it meant. "I still can't tell if you're trying to impress me or spoil me," he said, watching the flicker of light play across her cheek. "Neither," she replied without turning. "I just wanted to celebrate." He nodded, slipping his hands into his pockets. "And you thought a rooftop dinner with a private chef and a string quartet hiding somewhere behind that wall was subtle." She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You said once you'd never been kissed on a cheval." "I did." She stepped closer. "Well, I've never danced on a rooftop." He tilted his head. "That sounds dangerously poetic." "I'll take my chances." She reached for him, guiding his hand to her waist, her other hand sliding into his. The soft strains of music drifted toward them, and he followed her lead, slow and uncertain at first. She moved with confidence, but not the kind she used in boardrooms. This was quieter, warmer. "You've got rhythm," she noted. "I've got nerves," he corrected. She smiled. "You're doing fine." The wind teased a strand of hair across her lips, and he brushed it away gently. Her breath caught, but she didn't step back. "I thought I had everything figured out," she said quietly. "The business, the future, my life, but I didn't know what it meant to be seen, not like this, not without expectation." He held her gaze. "You're not just a title or a resume, you're more than what you built." Her voice dropped. "With you, I don't feel like I have to earn love." "You don't," he said. "You just have to let someone give it to you." They stopped moving. The music faded into the background, the city becoming a distant hum. She searched his face, as if trying to find the words she hadn't spoken yet. "I told my board today that I'm stepping back," she said. "I'll stay on as chair, but I'm handing over day-to-day operations." He blinked. "You're serious?" "I want to build something different now, not just businesses, a life, one that feels like mine." He hesitated. "And where do I fit in that?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned and walked to the table, picking up a small velvet box. When she returned, she placed it in his hand. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single silver key, plain except for the initials engraved into the side. K.D. "I bought the lot," she said. "The print shop, but I don't want to turn it into another office. I want to build something there with you, a real garage, your name on the sign, your daughter's drawings on the walls." He stared at the key. "That's a big step." "I know." He looked up. "Why?" "Because I love you," she said simply. "Not because you saved me, or because you said the right thing in a boardroom, but because you're the first person who never asked me to be anything but myself." He closed the box and stepped closer. "I love you too, but not just for what you're giving me, or what you've survived. I love the way you look at Kara like she's the most honest person in the room. I love how you don't flinch when things get hard, and I love that you dance even when you're scared." She exhaled, and it sounded like relief. "So what now?" He took her hand. "Now we go home, and tomorrow we take that key and start something new." They left the rooftop hand in hand, descending into the quiet of the street where her car waited. He opened the door for her this time, and she didn't protest. When they pulled up to his building, the porch light was still on, and Kara's drawings fluttered against the window. She leaned over as he turned off the ignition. "Do you think she'll like me?" "She already does," he said. "She calls you the Sparkle Lady." Avery laughed, resting her forehead against his shoulder. "I think I'm ready to be part of something real." "You already are." They walked inside together, the warmth of the apartment wrapping around them. Kara waited on the couch with Mrs. Alvarez, who raised an eyebrow when she saw Avery but said nothing. Kara leapt up and hugged her dad, then turned to Avery with sleepy eyes. "Did you bring me a cupcake?" "No," Avery replied, bending down. "But I brought you a story. about a girl who used to be very busy and very serious until she met a tiny boss who reminded her how to laugh. Kara grinned. I like stories. Wesley met Avery's gaze over his daughter's head, something steady and certain passing between them. This wasn't just an ending. It was the start of a new chapter, one built not on power or survival, but on something stronger than either. Love, earned, unexpected, and entirely real. The morning air was crisp as Wesley stood outside the weather-worn building that once held Avery's parents' print shop. Sunlight streamed through the gaps in the rusted awning, catching on the scaffolding that now framed the structure's skeleton. A crew was already at work behind him, voices low as they measured and mapped out the foundation's new layout. Avery stepped out of her car, her flats crunching on the gravel. She was dressed down in jeans and a flannel shirt, her hair pulled into a loose knot at the base of her neck. No sleek suits, no heels, just the woman he'd come to know beneath all the armor. "You're early," she said, walking toward him with a coffee tray in hand. "So are you," he replied. "Figured you'd be on a call or juggling something with a board." "I signed everything over 2 days ago," she said, offering him a cup. "This is my only project now." He took the cup, watching her as she turned to face the building. "It's going to take months to get it ready." "I don't care," she said. "I'm not in a hurry anymore." They walked the perimeter together, stepping over tools and stacks of lumber. A space had already been cleared for the garage's main bay, and behind it, a smaller room with half-framed walls was starting to take shape. "What's that going to be?" he asked, tilting his head. She smiled, "A reading nook." He blinked. "In a garage." "For Kara," she said. "She likes to be near you, and I thought maybe she'd want somewhere cozy while you work." He didn't say anything for a moment, then quietly, "You thought of that on your own." "I did." Wesley looked at her, then reached out and gently brushed her knuckles. "You're not just good with plans, you're good with people." "I spent a long time thinking I had to prove my worth," she said softly. "Now I just want to share it with people who make me better." The construction noise faded behind them as they wandered toward the back of the lot, where a small patch of wildflowers had begun to sprout through the cracks in the concrete. She crouched down, brushing her fingers over the petals. "My mom planted these," she said. "They used to line the walkway. I thought they were gone." "They're not," Wesley said, crouching beside her. "They were just waiting." She turned her head, eyes meeting his. "Do you still feel like you don't know what this is?" she asked. He took her hand. "No, I know exactly what this is." She stood with him, and they walked back to the front of the lot, where the crew had started hauling in the new support beams. Avery paused near the edge of the sidewalk, staring at the painted sign that had been uncovered beneath a layer of sheet metal. The faded letters read, "Rowan Print Co." "I want to leave it," she said. "The sign." He nodded. "It's your history." "It's part of mine," she corrected, then looked up at him. "But I want the new sign to say Dalton and Rowan, together." "Has a nice ring to it," he said, "but only if your name goes first." She arched a brow. "Why?" "Because you were brave enough to believe in this before I was." She stepped closer. "What are you doing tonight?" "Kara and I were going to make spaghetti. She insists on meatballs the size of her fists." "Mind if I join?" He kissed her forehead. "You're already expected." Later that evening, the apartment buzzed with warmth. Kara sat at the kitchen table rolling meatballs with comical determination, her hands coated in breadcrumbs and herbs. Avery wore one of Wesley's aprons, laughing as she tried to keep up with Kara's instructions. "No, not like that," the little girl said, frowning. "You have to squish it, not pat it." "Yes, chef," Avery replied, mock serious. Wesley stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. The girl who once cried alone in a conference room was now kneeling on the kitchen floor, helping a child tie her shoe with a smile that reached every corner of her face. After dinner, Kara fell asleep on the couch mid-story, her head in Avery's lap. Wesley gently lifted her, carrying her to bed, and returned to find Avery curled up, staring at the ceiling. "She told me I'm part of the team now," she said quietly. "That get to be on defense." "She's picky about her roster," he replied. Avery's eyes found his. "I want this life, not just the good parts, all of it, you, her, the late nights, the burnt toast, the noise." "You sure?" he asked, serious now. She reached for his hand. "I've never been more sure of anything." He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers. "Then let's make it official." She blinked. "You mean?" "I don't have a ring yet," he said, "but I have a heart that's already yours, and a daughter who just asked me this morning if you could move in." She swallowed. "What did you say?" "I said she'd have to ask you herself." Avery grinned. "Well, in that case, yes, to all of it." They didn't rush things. They didn't need to. The next few months unfolded like a slow bloom, early mornings at the build site, shared dinners, laughter echoing through the garage as Kara painted flowers on the new office wall. The sign went up one bright afternoon, the letters bold and clean, Dalton and Rowan. Kara wore a hard hat 2 sizes too big, holding Avery's hand as Wesley flipped the switch on the new neon light. They stood together beneath it, the 3 of them, arms wrapped around each other as the sun dipped below the city skyline. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was full. And for Avery, who had once mistaken power for safety, and Wesley, who had learned to carry grief with grace, it was everything they'd never dared to hope for. Real, earned, forever.